Hey, hi, Dust here. Chapter 16 contains some references to suicidal actions and also childhood prostitution. So, if you're not cool with that, and honestly I'm not either, don't listen to this part. Jason's Birds by Coven YT 2950 and Legolin 3791. Chapter 14. Tim. He felt hands moving his body through the dense fog in his mind, pulling it up and rearranging his limbs so an arm was beneath his head and his face rested against a chest. The hands were firm, but gentle, as one held his cheek and the other his chin, as if to open his mouth. Tim grunted and weakly turned his face to the side, his mind in the depth of unconsciousness, but his instincts were still there. Tim tried to open his eyes, but he had no energy to do it or talk. Shh. It's okay, little Robin. Open it for me. Don't fight it. A familiar voice told him reassuringly, fingers caressing his skin. Tim didn't want to do what he was told. Nothing made sense, and he had no idea what was happening, but his instincts weren't enough to break through the sleepiness holding his mind hostage. And to make it even worse, a part of him relied on the comfort in that voice. He didn't know to whom it belonged to, but that part of him trusted it. Tim stopped fighting and allowed one of the hands to open his mouth and put something inside it that seemed like pills. He felt a cold surface, glass on his lips right before water came down his throat in small sips, not giving him any trouble to swallow the pills. That's a good boy. The voice praised him in a way that was mocking, but also strangely caring. He was sure that he knew someone that was capable of both at the same time, but he couldn't remember who. Now rest, little Robin, Tim was ordered, as the hands laid him back in his earlier position on the bed. Incapable of resisting the wave of tiredness that took over his body, he obeyed and allowed his consciousness to fall into the darkness.
I thought that I made it clear that I'm back.
The voice, this time deep and mechanized, echoed in the room, reaching his ears. There was no trace of the comforting or caring tone from before in it. Only sheer coldness. Tim was able to open his eyes, but all he could see was the blurred figure less than a meter from him.
Well, now they do.
The sneer was dripping with contempt.
I don't give a shit about what they will do to divide the territories as long as they don't get in my fucking way.
Territories? Which territories? He didn't see anyone in the room, so the figure must have been talking on the phone. Who was that?
A meeting. Whatever, but tell them that I decide where and when it will happen. They can bring their shitty henchmen, but the rest is on my terms.
The voice snarled, causing Tim to shudder. He could feel that it was something he needed to pay attention to, that it was important, that the person talking was important, but his thoughts just wouldn't connect to each other. Tim couldn't stop himself from letting a moan of confusion come out of his mouth. The capacity of not being able to get his mind out of the fog deeply bothering him, although he didn't know why. Why didn't he know? But he didn't have time to try and think about it, because the figure turned to him at the noise.
I'll call later to get my answer, and they better have it, or I won't hesitate to show them how exactly those pieces of shit died.
The figure threatened, and turned off the phone, slowly walking towards him. Tim struggled to react somehow. To move, talk, but no part of his body obeyed him. Actually, the struggle only made him more tired and weak.
Hey, little Robin, you shouldn't be awake.
There was a complete turn on the voice again, that now was soft again. It didn't make sense.
Come back to sleep. It's better for you.
The figure commanded, before a warm hand on his shoulder, rubbing it. The touch felt safe, and home. But deep down, he knew something was wrong.
Shh, no worries. I'll be back soon, I promise. Just sleep.
The voice told him, and he didn't want them to leave for some reason, but he was too weak to contradict the figure. Tim closed his eyes and felt a kiss on his forehead, falling into the sweet embrace of the unconsciousness. Steps. Continuous sounds of steps. That was the first thing Tim perceived when he had a clearer glimpse of consciousness. He felt as if his limbs were numb as he cut through the fog in his mind. It was like all the sleepless nights wanted revenge and hit him at once. Tim never felt so tired. It took a few minutes for him to resist the temptation to keep sleeping. It sounded like an amazing idea, but he had to know what the hell the steps were. Tim opened his eyes a bit, looking towards the sound of the steps. He frowned when he saw Jason through his half-blurred vision. His brother was walking from one side to the other, almost nervously, grunting and making moves he couldn't follow. That was weird. "Jason?" Tim whispered, not able to stop himself from being worried about Jason. He didn't expect the sight he received when Jason turned to look at him, a smirk on his face and eyes totally taken over by a vicious green. The pit. Tim wanted to panic, to act. He was afraid, no, terrified, but the fog in his mind just wouldn't allow him to, causing him to only be able to gasp. "It's not time yet, little Robin. It's still too soon for a bird like you to wake up." Jason scoffed as he approached and sat on the bed beside him, putting a possessive hand on his abdomen. Tim swallowed and looked down at Jason's hand, struggling to keep his eyes open. Was the figure Jason? Was it his voice? He couldn't think straight, with the way his thoughts were still disconnected, but he recognized the way of talking even without the modulator. "Hood?" Tim stated weakly. "Smart bird." Hood chuckled mockingly and tilted his head. Tim shrinked. It couldn't be. "Shh. I won't hurt you this time. You're my Robin now," Hood said darkly, his hand moving to his hair and petting it. Oh no, not again. It was good. Why was it good? Hood meant pain, suffering, no comfort. Jason was good. He had been good to him. Jason... Where was Jason? No, not a Robin. Never one. Tim breathed out, because he needed Hood to understand that. He wasn't a replacement. He wasn't a threat to him. "Keep denying. It won't make it true." Hood sneered, and then leaned forward, whispering in his ear. "Now, come back to sleep. Okay, little Robin?" Hood's voice was gentle when he spoke, but Tim knew it was in order. He could feel it. He remembered it. "If you keep screaming like a little bitch, you will wake your friends up. And that's not what you want, is it, replacement?" Tim didn't want to do it again. He didn't want to. But, unfortunately, he wasn't strong enough to fight against the way his eyelids were heavier and heavier. The sleepiness pushed his consciousness down once more. Jason. He woke up with the worst headache ever. God fucking damn it. It was like a bus ran over his head again and again. Jason held the armrests tight and breathed deeply for a few minutes, trying to lessen the pain. When it was finally minimally bearable, he sighed and opened his eyes, realizing that he was sitting on the armchair beside Timbo's bed. Fuck. What the hell had happened? Jason could only remember sitting there and watching his little brother fall asleep. Then the headache came. He dropped his phone and it was all blank, as if his mind had shut down. Did he fall asleep too? That was ridiculous. He wasn't even sleepy. Looking down at himself, Jason realized he had changed clothes for his other Red Hood armor, the one he wore when the main one couldn't be worn for some reason. Something was really fucking wrong. He put his hands in his pockets, being relieved when he saw that the painkillers and pills were still there, but frowning because some of them were missing. Did he take any of them? Maybe for the shitty headache. That would explain why he was sleeping. But if Jason had taken the pills, then why did that shit still hurt? He had to know how much time he had slept, so he could find an answer for that question. Jason was about to check his watch when he remembered that he took it off after going to the bathtub. Fucking great. Jason glanced at where he dropped his phone and leaned down, making a face when the movement caused a stabbing pain to cut through his head. It was starting to piss him off. Grabbing the phone, he turned it on. What? 5:17 a.m. Saturday. It could only be a fucking joke. He couldn't have slept for almost 2 fucking days. Wait, Timmy. Jason looked at his little bird in a little bit of a panic, and really paid attention to him. Approaching and kneeling beside the bed, he ignored the headache. If it was for real, then Timbits didn't eat or drink water for almost 2 days either. Shit. He should be taking care of the kid, not fucking up his body even more. Timmers already had himself for that job. Jason held his little brother's face with one hand and desperately shook his shoulder with the other. "Timbo, wake up. Come on, wake up," Jason said loudly, not being able to hold his concern back anymore when he didn't answer the shouting. Wake the fuck up, Timmy. What? Jason? Timbits questioned as he opened his eyes, his expression contorting in confusion and bewilderment. Yeah, little bird, it's me. Jason sighed in relief and gave a small smile, petting Timmer's head. He got up and passed his hand through his hair, exhaling. Okay, now he needed to give him water and food, urgently. Jason could figure out what the hell happened later, but his little brother was his priority. What time is it? How long did I sleep? Timbo asked sleepily, but awake enough to frown in that inquisitive way that was typical of him. Oh, damn. That would be a pain in the ass to explain. Mainly when not even he knew how to do it. But he made a promise to his little bird, and lying wouldn't help with his progress. Jason was about to make an attempt when he heard a noise coming from the wall behind him, where another bedroom was. He immediately got an alert and turned to face the wall, grabbing his guns. There was someone else there, and that shouldn't be possible. Could it be Batman? No, B had no way to find out where his bunker was, even less enter without his permission. He made sure of it. Well, it didn't matter. Jason glanced at Timmy, and although his expression was obviously intentionally unreadable, he knew him well. Timbits was considering that it could be Batman, and if he did, then he would mess up. Jason couldn't let it happen when they were starting to develop a better relationship. Not now. Stay there and stay quiet, little bird. That's an order. Jason snarled, using the muzzle of his gun to raise Timmer's chin and lock his gaze with his. He didn't think he was able to threaten to kill Timbits like before, which sucked, because he could be pretty scary even without it. Jason was Red Hood, after all. Because if you don't, I would hate to have to shoot any other bird or bat that could be out there, Jason declared with a scoff, and watched his little brother tighten his lips in a thin line, but nod. That was all he knew he could get from Timbo, and it would have to be enough. Moving away from Timmy, he opened the door and looked around, not seeing anyone as he carefully walked through the hallway. Jason headed towards the door of the bedroom, from where the noise came, ready to face whoever was behind it, when he kicked the door and aimed his guns. Ah, shit. He certainly wasn't ready for it. That was not in his plan at all. Little Wing? A breathless, quivering voice called him. No fucking way. Dickie? Chapter 15. The night before. Hood. He wanted to hurt them badly. The fucking pieces of shit, all of them, rapists, sexual traffickers, pedophiles, abusers, or just normal assholes with too much power and money. The scum of Gotham that Batman was too much of a fucking pussy to clean up. He would crush their eyeballs and slaughter their genitals, cut off each of their limbs until they bled to death, slowly slash them open, piece by piece, and make them choke on their own blood as he ripped off their skin. Oh, it would be a fucking party. But it would never be enough for his hunger. There weren't enough of them for it. It was good that he found another way to satisfy it. Hood stared at the building less than 2 kilometers from him through the lens of his sniper rifle. His aim was focused on the left one, where all the scumbags were reunited on the 4th floor. It would be a piece of cake to just kill them all right now. But that wasn't the plan. It was too easy to be. He wasn't there for them. He was there for his birds. It was then that he heard it, the familiar steps of 3 people he knew well. Showtime. Jason. Batman's voice echoed on the rooftop of the building. Not his name, but it seemed like Daddy was mad. The night would be interesting. What's up, Daddy? Hood greeted him with his mechanized voice, resting the rifle on the support and turning. He was received by the sight of 1 bird on each side of the bat. His birds. But 3 were missing, and 1 was hidden in his nest. Not cool at all. It's over, Jason. Tell me where Tim is. Batman ordered coldly, but Hood ignored him to look at Nightwing and Robin. The little bastard had that silent anger shining in his eyes, as always. Not a surprise. The kid was the demon spawn, after all. But the big bird, he was another matter. What's wrong, older brother? Hood questioned mockingly, crossing his arms. You don't like the popsicle I left for you? Don't do that, Little Wing. Nightwing clenched his teeth, tired and irritated. B is right. It's over. If you fight us, you'll only get hurt. Please, just stop now, and we still have a chance to fix it. Oh yeah, Always the moderator. The first Robin and the son Batman adored. Annoying. A chance? Please don't tell me you're that naive. Big brother. I thought the Hellspawn had taught you something about the dark side. Hood scoffed, observing the baby bird scowl, but not saying anything when the big one gave him a look. Someone was grounded. He raised his hands in mock surrender and stepped forward. But fine. If you want me, you got me. I won't fight. And I'll even tell you where Timbo is. Then you can drive me to that shithole in Arkham. Hood declared sarcastically, stretching his hands out together, when Batman raised an eyebrow. What? What's so hard to believe about it? I'm ready to pay for my sins, as a good boy. Hood gave a side smile. Batman stared at him in silence, while Robin frowned and Nightwing looked at his hands suspiciously. They would take it. It was their chance to finally arrest him and take Timbers away from him. That obviously would never fucking happen. Hood would shoot Batman before it. But if he could just get him a step closer with the baby bird, for them, and, mainly, save the cocksuckers. Stand back, Robin. Watch him, Nightwing. Batman ordered, and approached, taking reinforced handcuffs from the back of his belt that Hood allowed to be put around his wrists. It was heavy, and certainly strong enough to keep his old self from getting rid of it. Resurrection was never so advantageous. It's just a real pity that one of these scumbags will still die. But what can we do, right? Hood shrugged. Explain, Batman said, his eyes narrowed. Well, I was so fucking bored, so I thought, why not take one of the suckers and put him in the neighborhood building with a bomb? I obviously did it then. Hood smiled proudly, tilting his head and watching the three of them look at the building behind him. Really? What did a guy have to do to get his family's complete attention? Hey, I'm here, and Timmy isn't in there. Hood rolled his eyes. You're lying. We know about the meeting. You came for all of them, not just one. Batman stated, so sure and confident. Well, he wasn't wrong, but he had found a greater hobby than just killing criminals and villains. Collecting birds. Maybe yes, maybe not. But if you truly want to find Timbits so hard, you'll have to risk it, Dad Bats, Hood said, scorn dripping from his voice as he looked into Batman's eyes. It can't be so hard for you, can it? A criminal for your son. That's an easy choice. It should be. Hood would make that choice any day, and he would burn the whole world if Timbo asked him for it. And even if he didn't, it would be a pleasure. He would always protect what was his. And well, someone in the family had to do the dirty work. That's not a choice, Jason. Batman grunted, looking between Nightwing and Robin, as if it wasn't clear what he was thinking. His family was so fucking predictable. How the hell were they still alive? Well then, you don't have much time to save the piece of shit. 20 minutes and the clock is running, Dad. Hood warned with a smirk. Whose life will you risk? I would bet Robin. After all, it wouldn't be the first time you sent one into danger by themselves, would it? I'm not you, Todd. I can do it. Robin growled, and Batman's lips tightened into a thin line, a glimpse of pain shining in his eyes for a moment. Aw, Dad was too much of a pussy to take the truth. No, I got it, B. Nightwing offered and gave a look to Robin, approaching Batman, who faced the older bird with a scowl. You and Robin have to stay to watch him. It has to be me. That was right. It could only be him. In and out, Nightwing. Don't take unnecessary risks. Oracle will assist you. Batman ordered, and Nightwing nodded, walking towards him with a stern expression. When I come back, you'll tell me where Tim is. Dick snarled. And why should I do it? Hood questioned mockingly. I have no idea what you want from him, but I know you give a damn about him, Little Wing. Or you wouldn't be mad at us. You might not be showing it right, but you do. And I know I fucked up, but he needs his older brother. He needs me. Nightwing said, and pointed to himself, a mix of emotions passing through his expression. You know it's true. He had no idea how fucking right he was. You're right, big brother. Hood admitted with a side smile. Don't worry your pretty little head. You'll soon see Timmy. The older boy narrowed his eyes, surprised but also suspicious, analyzing his face and looking for something. Nightwing, Batman called, causing him to give Hood a last look before jumping from the roof and heading to the second building. As planned, now he just needed to prepare for the distraction. Turning to face Robin and Batman, Hood raised an eyebrow. So, now that it's just the three of us, you have to talk about your stupid judgment, Dad Bats. It's clear that you play favorites, and that isn't fair for the rest of us. I won't discuss it with you, Jason. Batman said firmly, looking away from him to the baby bird. Neither will Robin. If you preferred that way. But you don't have to. I can be the only one talking. Hood tilted his head. Because you know I'm right, Daddy. You judge me, but Robin here already tried to kill his brother just like me, and I don't see him getting punished for it. Hood waited for a reaction. Any reaction from Batman, but there was nothing but a blank expression. Oh, so the fucker already knew it? I know. It was a mistake that Robin won't repeat. Batman explained, no sign of emotion in his voice. Two could play at that game. What about the fucking clown? Hood asked mockingly. Where is his punishment? Should I take him out of that shithole and give one of the birds to him? Maybe then you'll do something about him. He's rotting in Arkham, Jason. We already talked about it. If I had crossed that line, I wouldn't be the father you loved once, son. Batman sighed. It's the same with Tim. Cute. But if it was more than just bullshit, Jason wouldn't need him to do the job, and Timmers would still be a free bird. No, I don't think it's because of it. Do you know what I think? Hood questioned with a malicious smile. You push everyone in your life away. But Joker, he's the one you're always chasing. Do you have something to confess to us, Dad? Enough. Batman snapped. Why? Because I'm saying some facts in front of the demon spawn? Hood asked ironically. That kid doesn't need your protection, Daddy. He needs a shock collar. Say that again, Todd. I dare you. Robin growled. You need a shock collar, bitch. Hood emphasized every word, leaning over to say it to the baby bird's face. I'll kick your ass, and when I'm done, Father is going to throw you in Arkham. Robin didn't back away, fury burning in his green eyes. The little shit had potential. He just needed someone to teach him a lesson first. Stop, Robin. You too, Jason. Batman ordered, and honestly, Hood was getting tired of them calling him like that. He was not Jason. He was not the happy Robin that died tragically. He was the entity behind the pit, incarnated in a body to do and be what Jason couldn't. And it was time for them to know what differentiated him from Jason. In perfect timing, his phone started to whistle, signaling that the older bird was already stuck inside the safe box. It was time. Boom. The bombs in the building where the criminals were exploded. The bases on the right side falling apart and causing it to fall on the neighboring building, taking both to the ground. It was beautiful. Gotham was a hellhole. It took and took, but never gave anything in return to those that lived in its embrace. Those who loved it. It only gave its citizens two choices. Run away from its shadows, or embrace them. And this was the start of a new time. Batman and Robin faced the destruction in shock, as Hood smirked, taking advantage of their distraction. There's only one problem, Dad Bats. Hood broke the reinforced cuffs and reached out for the device he had forced Scarecrow to make. I'm not fucking Jason. I'm your worst nightmare. His eyes shone green, as too much happened at the same time. Batman and Robin came out of their stupor and attacked at once, one from each side, ferociously. But it was too late, when he activated the device and a green smoke released into the air. They didn't even have time to reach out for their oxygen masks before the toxin entered their noses and mouths, both stumbling backwards and falling to their knees, coughing harshly. Oh, how their suffering would be delicious. Hood laughed mockingly at them, his mask filtering the air and stopping him from getting affected. Soon, he wouldn't need one for something so minimal and human. I would love to watch what the toxin Scarecrow used on Timmers would do to both of you. Hood sneered, walking towards Robin and grasping him by the arm. It was easy to drag the boy to the edge of the roof as he choked with the toxin, too intoxicated to do anything. Of course, that was not exactly the same toxin. Hood made sure to increase its effects, specially for them, so they could know what the little bird had been through. But I have something to teach the baby bird here, about consequences. Hood dropped Robin to the ground, stepping back from him. He stared at Batman with a sadistic grin on his face, the man that usually scares so many trying to get up, and failing every attempt. There was a simple joy in that desperate look in his eyes. Lesson number 1, Robin. Eye for an eye. He kicked him off the roof. He enjoyed Robin's panicked expression as he fell behind and beyond his sight. It was a matter of seconds before Shadow jumped into the darkness after the boy. Hood looked down to see that Batman was holding the baby bird in the air, turning their bodies so he was the one to hit his back on the side stairs and then the ground. Damn. What a hell of a fall. Oops. Hood shrugged. It could have been worse. He could have easily held Batman down in his current situation, and then Robin would just have to deal with the prospect of death, as the little bird had to. But it wasn't needed. Just that would keep them out of action for a good time. Enough for him to do what he had come to. Hood walked away from the edge and grabbed his sniper rifle, smirking while staring at the fallen buildings. It was time to capture the big bird. Chapter 16. Jason. Little Wing. A breathless, quivering voice called him. No fucking way. Dickie? Jason questioned with a scowl, immediately lowering his guns and putting them in their holsters, analyzing Dick. What the hell? He looked like shit. Was that a family thing? Dickie was half lying, with his chest bare, resting his back on the headboard, with a blanket covering him from the waist down. There were handcuffs around each of his wrists, and chains connecting them to the wall. But that wasn't what really worried Jason. It was the bruises scattered across his chest and arms, but mainly the big red and purple bullet bruise right below his lungs. That was only not a hole because of the Kevlar of his suit. Who the hell dared to shoot his brother? I'm sorry, Little Wing. I'll stay quiet. It won't happen again. You can hurt me if you want, but please don't hurt Tim, okay? Dick said with a pleading look, like a kicked puppy. What? Jason didn't even tell him to shut up or threaten him yet. Fine, maybe he did, but it was only a bluff, and it had already been almost 2 days. Why did Dickie seem so scared of what he could do? That wasn't as enjoyable as he thought it would be. Okay, first, what the fuck are you talking about, Goldie? Second, how did you get in here? Jason questioned harshly, and stepped closer to Dick. He knew he could have been kinder, but he was still a bit mad at Dickie, and needed answers now. You brought me here, Hood. Dickie frowned before his expression contorted and hurt. Is that some kind of a trap? I know I deserved what you did, but you don't have to do that. I got it. I won't try anything. Hood? What he had done to him? And what did he mean by hating him? Also, as if he could truly hate the walking sunshine ball. Not even his fucking creepy villains completely hated him. He had to keep an eye on that asshole Slade because of it. Jason sighed and pinched his nose. Nothing was making fucking sense, and he didn't like it at all. He couldn't have brought Dickie here. Besides the fact that Dad Bats certainly wouldn't have allowed it, Jason was sleeping. He couldn't even leave the bunker. It was impossible for him to have done something and not remembered it, unless he was drugged. But the pills he took and gave to Timbo were strong, but not that strong. It didn't cause loss of memory. Maybe Goldie was lying to him, fooling him and trying to make him think he was crazy. But after the last time, he wouldn't have acted alone again, which meant B would be part of it. But why have all that shitty work? It was pointless. If B found this place, he wouldn't just play with him. He would have already taken Timmy from him, and he would be currently in a cell in Arkham. Which could only mean that he was the one to bring Dickie to the bunker. Fuck. Okay, there was no one else there, so now wasn't the time to consider the possibility he was more insane than he thought. What mattered was that some fucker had the balls to shoot one of his birds, when only he had that right. I still have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but I'll deal with that later on. Jason scoffed, exasperated, and leaned over the bed. Putting a hand on Goldie's abdomen, he ignored his shiver, and how hard he attempted to stand still. He analyzed the bruise, and saw that it was already taken care of. By a professional. But by who? Jason clenched his teeth. Not knowing exactly what was happening pissed him off. Now, let's focus on the fact that you'll tell me exactly who did this to you so I can cut them in pieces. Jason smirked to hide his irritation. Goldie frowned. What do you mean, Little Wing? What I just fucking said, Dickie. Who did this to you? Who hurt my older brother? Jason snapped, and held Dick's shoulder tightly. He prepared himself for some emotional manipulation and shitty threats to force him to spit it out. It wasn't how he wanted to deal with it, but there was no way he was going to let the fucker that did this get away with it. and if he had to use some not really moral methods, he would. Surprisingly, it wasn't needed. Dickie's expression was cautious, hesitant, but he eventually whispered, "It was you, Hood." His brain stopped working for a few seconds, his breath hitching as he released his shoulder, as if they were burning. Getting up, he walked backwards until he felt the cold wall on his back. No, it couldn't be true. He didn't. "You. If you're lying to protect anyone, I swear, Dickie," Jason threatened breathlessly. No, I swear it's true, Hood. I wouldn't lie to you again." Dick shook his head, so desperate that it was sickening. "But it's not fucking true, damn it. It can't be me," Jason stated in panic. "But it was. You said that it was my punishment for being a bad older brother for Tim. You said something about a spleen?" Dick was quick to explain. That seemed like something he would say. But he would never shoot Dickie. Would he? Okay, maybe yes. But if he wanted to kill his brother, he would have shot him in the head, and... Wait. Dickie wasn't dead. He had some shitty bruises, and the bullet one must have hurt like hell, but he was alive. It was what Jason would do if he wanted to hurt him but not kill or cause any serious injuries. It made sense. It could actually have been him. The color faded from his face as Jason panted, feeling the familiar panic infiltrating his mind as his vision spun. No, Jason repeated, breathing quickly. Fuck, what the hell was wrong with him? He didn't remember it. How? Little Wing? He watched Dick narrow his eyes and then widen them in hope. Jay? No. He couldn't be close to Goldie right now, not when he didn't know what he had done and could do to him. He left the bedroom and ignored Dick calling his name, closing the door. Stumbling through the corridor, his thoughts swirled around his mind. It could only have been him. It explained everything. Why he changed clothes and didn't know. The blank in his memory, and the reason his older brother was there, hurt. But it had to have an explanation for it. Jason had to talk to Timbo. He was a genius, and if someone, even sleepy and under the effects of the pills, knew what had happened to him during those days, it would be him. But he couldn't. He fucking shot Dickie and didn't know he had done so. What could he have done to his little brother? What could he do? Jason was never someone to trust others easily. Living in the streets of Crime Alley, he learned that he could only trust himself. He had changed that, for a time. Elfie and Dickie, too. Roy, he was a whole other matter, but Jason always knew that he had himself in the end. Now, for the first time since the pit, he wasn't sure of it anymore. Shit. He had to figure out what was happening to him. He needed... Jason headed to his bedroom, trying to control his breathing, to not hyperventilate as his vision blurred at the edges. Jason stumbled again, falling to his knees and hands. It was like a hammer hitting his head continuously, over and over. The fucking headache was coming back. He had to solve it before it knocked him down again. Getting up, he opened the door and entered his bathroom. Running to turn on the faucet, he washed his face, turning it off, and facing himself in the mirror. Although he also looked like shit, he still seemed as himself. But he also knew well not everything was what it seemed like. A stab of pain hit his head again, causing him to close his eyes for a second and make a face, holding the edges of the sink. When it finally stopped, he looked up, only to be received by the sight of his eyes shining green. Completely green. The pit. No. He was healed. The pit was gone, only leaving a hole inside him that was filled with rage and darkness, traces that still haunted him. The only thing he felt was the hole. But it wasn't the real green. It wasn't its influence. It wasn't the fog that blinded him to his feelings and actions, that controlled and decided who he was. That was gone. Forever. Unless... it couldn't be. Talia, she mentioned it, but it was only when he made a stupid joke about the pit. It was impossible. She said it was just another story about the pit, one that not even the creepy old dude of her father believed. But there was only one way to prove it wasn't. Oh God, that was such a terrible idea. Probably the worst one he's ever had. Roy would come back from the dead again, just to kick his ass for it. And maybe he wouldn't even need to. If he did that, there was a chance of it backfiring, and then, not only would he be fucked up, but also Dickie and Timmers. It was a real risk. Taking his phone out of his pocket, he settled a message with their location and how to get to the bunker to be sent to Oracle in 2 hours if he didn't cancel it, putting it back in. Although he hated to give his birds back to the bat, if he was wrong, he wouldn't condemn his brothers. Well, it was time to fuck all his therapy up. Grabbing one of his guns from its holster, he raised it and rested the muzzle on the right side of his head. He looked at his reflection. He remembered well how many times he thought about doing it. Mainly the first one. Back then, he was a street rat and was freezing to death in the winter of Gotham, without a place to sleep or anything to eat. He needed to survive. He wanted to, and he was running out of options. That was when he decided to do what he had to. He went to the girls in the club in front of the alley, where he slept. But this time not for food or care as always, but for guidance. They gave him a pitiful look and tried to help him some other way, but they had their hands tied as much as he did. They taught him all they knew, and offered to get the worst clients, leaving the less worse to him. Jason did what he had seen kids even younger than him having to do. And it was after that, throwing up continuously, that he truly considered just ending everything there. It would have been much easier, much better than what Jason had become that night. In the end, he didn't, and some weeks later, the Batmobile gleamed at him, seeming to beckon him onward. It was worth it, although he died sometime later. He could just hate B for being a shitty dad, but he had saved him from a worse fate. But he truly had wanted to die that night. Now, he didn't. For how he felt when he cuddled Timmy, hugging and comforting him. For the way he knew he could take care of not only his little bird, but the rest of them. He had a reason to keep going. He had something to lose. "You know what? Fuck it," Jason snarled, breathing heavy. He clenched his teeth. He held the gun tightly, the muzzle against his head, trying to stop himself from shaking. He closed his eyes. Jason pulled the trigger, and the sound of a shot echoed. Chapter 17. Hood's POV. He sat on the ground, clenching his teeth. Fucking stupid, Jason. What was he thinking? Just because he wouldn't die, it didn't mean he could do shit like that. That shit fucking hurt. Of course it wasn't like Hood could hurt. He wasn't capable of it. But he had to absorb the pain so Jason wouldn't feel it later. He should have let him wake up with the pain of a wound of a bullet that crossed his head, still healing. But he didn't. Only because he had some time before Jason was back. And he had some things to solve before. Grabbing his gun and putting it back in its holster, Hood grabbed his phone and canceled the message. As if there was a way of those birds leaving their cages without his permission. He rose and got out of the bathroom, leaving his bedroom and walking towards Dickie's. When he was passing by his little Robin's bedroom, he heard him shouting for Jason. Aw, that was cute. He was worried, but he didn't have time to appreciate that when he remembered the big bird. He ran and opened Dickie's bedroom door, immediately being received by the sight of him with his mouth open and about to shout back, his eyes widening when he saw him. Not on his turn. He was quickly on the other side of the bedroom, roughly putting his hand on the big bird's mouth and stifling his scream. Dickie struggled against the chains and gave him a pleading look. "Oh no, those puppy dog eyes won't work on me, Dickie." Hood sneered, asking threateningly, "I'll take my hand off your mouth, and if you shout, I swear I'm going to make you regret it. Do you get it?" Hood watched his big bird slowly nod, doing what he said he would, and smirking when Dickie obeyed. Things were easier like that. "Now, I thought I told you to stay quiet like a good boy. Why would you consider alarming Timmy of your presence, big brother? Wasn't I clear enough last time?" Hood questioned in Dickie's face, and held his right cheek gently, but firmly. As much as he wasn't happy with him yet, this was one of his birds after all. I wasn't thinking, Little Wing. It won't happen again. Jason. Dickie whispered confusedly. "I know Jason was here. No worries about him. He will be back soon, and this time, he will know what I did, so some misunderstandings are avoided," Hood informed exasperatedly. It would be better like that. Jason already knew what was happening to him, which meant, as transparent as he was, it would be better for them to be in tune. His big bird finally seemed to notice the blood on the side of his head, gasping as a concerned expression took his face. Hood had to stop himself from laughing. That was sweet. He had thrown a building on Dickie, shot a guy in front of him, and then shot him, and he still was worried about him. That just proved how, although Big Bird had been a shitty big brother, he was still too good for this shithole of a world. "Your head, Hood. What did you—" Dickie started, but was interrupted by Hood. "Shh. None of your business, big brother. Just stay quiet until I'm back. Because if you're a good boy, when I bring food and water later, you'll see Timbo." Hood watched Big Bird's eyes shine with hope, sneering, "Can you do that? Or do I have to gag you?" It was a fun image, pleasing even. Sometimes birds shouldn't be allowed to sing. "I can do that, Hood," Dickie stated firmly, and for the first time since he rescued him from inside the safe box, he saw his big brother acting like himself. Not that he didn't like him all vulnerable, afraid of what he would do and obeying him, but he liked his big bird's morals. "Good. I'll check on our little brother. Don't forget what I told you." Hood scoffed and patted his cheek. He gave a shit-eating smile. Before turning and leaving the bedroom, he closed the door. Now it was time to have a little chat with his little Robin. Tim. A few minutes before. He watched Jason close the door, clenching his teeth. He didn't doubt his brother's threats were real, but he had to do something. Anything. Just something. If any of the bats really had found them and invaded the place, he couldn't let Jason get close to hurting them. Not after he remembered. He knew well that he certainly didn't sleep only 8 hours, and, even as drugged as he was, he would never forget what he saw. The vicious green eyes. The pit. The person that had knocked him out and taken care of him wasn't Jason. It was a distorted version of his brother. It was the pit all over again. That proved his theory, but it was worse than he expected. He saw Hood. He saw someone that wasn't Hood, and still was acting with his body. What was happening? He didn't have time to figure it out, and he still let his brother go after the source of the strange sound. It didn't matter that the one that had woken him up was the real Jason this time. He was too unpredictably dangerous to himself and to others. It was different when he was the only one that could be affected by it. It was okay if he was hurt, because then no one else would be. He wouldn't allow the pit to make more victims, including Jason, who wasn't guilty for what it was doing to him. Breathing deeply to not panic, Tim focused his senses and was barely able to hear Jason's voice saying something he didn't understand, as if he were talking to someone, but their voice wasn't loud enough for him to identify it. Was it Bruce or Dick? It wouldn't be Damien. They wouldn't let the new Robin be in danger for him, and he hated Tim too much to even try to save him. But whoever had come, he had to protect them. He was the only one that knew the situation of his brother, who was capable of making him listen to him, even if just a little. It was his responsibility if Jason hurt or killed any of them, and he wouldn't be able to live with this failure. Tim never felt so useless and impotent before, so guilty since Connor's death. He could leave the bedroom. He had convinced Jason to unchain him, and although it would be hard to move with the cast on his leg, Tim knew he could make it. But he would be risking Jason's fury, or even worse, the pits. Was it also his fault? By giving Jason what he wanted, could he have triggered the pit even more to the point it kind of possessed his brother? It was an illogical explanation, but he wasn't dealing with complete logic. He started all of that, so it wouldn't be a surprise if he just made things worse. As always. A sound drove him out of his thoughts, and back to reality. A shot. Tim froze when he heard a shot echo through the bunker, cold running through his blood. No, 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 no. Jason? Tim shouted desperately, not knowing if he should be worried about him, or about whatever had entered the bunker. Jason! No one answered. He knew he shouldn't have let Jason out there. He had to have insisted and begged, using his care for him to make him stay. Fuck the threat. He had been too slow, too weak, too stupid again, and someone would pay for it. He had to act now. Tim slowly moved to the side, forcing his limbs to obey him, and not the numbness of the pills still taking over him. He twisted his body until he was on the edge of the mattress, looking to the ground, and knowing that there was no other way, he turned and fell on his belly, clenching his teeth and ignoring the twinge of pain in his shoulder and leg. It wasn't as bad as when he arrived here, but it still hurt. He breathed deeply and fought to drag himself towards the door, sweating at the struggle. But when he was less than a meter away, the door suddenly opened, and he faced Boots. Jason's Boots. Looking up, Tim saw Green staring at him. "Oh no, shit!" "Hood?" Tim whispered tiredly, glancing behind the Boots, but not seeing anyone or any corpse. That was a good sign. Tim watched Hood crouch in front of him, not even being able to shudder in his current position. "Hello again, little Robin." Hood gave a side smile. "Where is Jason? Why is he gone?" Tim asked carefully. This wasn't time to back away, but he also didn't know exactly what he was dealing with. "Oh, that's just rude," Hood said, with false indignation, scoffing when Tim narrowed his eyes. Okay. I know you weren't expecting me, but we had some shitty technical problems." "Technical problems?" Tim gasped when he saw blood on the side of Hood's head, his black hair hiding whatever wound it came from. That couldn't be good. Did Hood hurt Jason's body? "Hood, what is that in your head?" Tim questioned, apprehensive over the answer. "This?" Hood brushed his fingers in the blood, looking between it and Tim's face with a cynical smile. "Well, Jason, like you, wanted to know what the fuck was happening with him. And, in a dramatic way, he found out. It just took a shot in the head for it." Tim's eyes widened, the meaning of those words sinking into his stomach. Jason had found out about the pit and shot himself in a way to figure it out. Or to stop it. But why did he do that to himself? Tim felt guilt take over him again. Maybe if he had told Jason about it before, his brother wouldn't have tried. He wouldn't have killed himself. He wouldn't have died again. Another thing to add to the list of what was his fault. If Bruce knew what he was responsible for, then Tim didn't know what he would be capable of doing to him. Kicking him out of Gotham forever? Taking the Wayne companies from him? Forcing him to stop being Red Robin? Maybe all of the options. An insane Jason was worth more than him. But how? How the hell was he still alive? How? Tim mumbled in shock, scowling. "Too complicated, little Robin, and I got no time to explain it. Jason's got it when he gets back." Hood scoffed and kneeled. "Now, let's put you back on the bed. It must not be comfortable to talk like that." Tim didn't want it. He was tired of being thrown around, of being manhandled, and told what to do. He was one of the smartest people on Earth, for fuck's sake. He needed answers, and he had to start acting. But it really wasn't comfortable, and as much as he hated it, he wasn't the only one who could get hurt if he made the wrong move. There was Jason and the person inside the bunker. Maybe that was his punishment, for all the times he fucked up, for all the people's lives he ruined, and for the moment he thought he was good enough to be a Robin. That he could pull Batman from the darkness and have a family that wanted and loved him. That he was like Dick, that he deserved the Titans and whatever was happening between him and Connor. If that was karma, then it was doing a great job at being a bitch. He felt Hood's hands move his body, so he was lying on his back, allowing him to put them under his knees and back and carry him to the bed. Tim couldn't make any more mistakes. He only had to wait until Jason was himself again, and then they could figure it out together. Maybe this time he was capable of convincing Jason of giving up on all this madness and getting some help. "I can see you thinking. Spit it out," Hood said exasperatedly, as he laid him on the bed, putting the blanket from his waist down. "Nothing," Tim retorted. "You're a bad liar, Timmers." Hood rolled his eyes and sat on the armchair. "Come on, I know you have more questions. Just fucking ask." Well, a question wouldn't make it worse than it already was. "Who was out of the bedroom?" Tim asked worriedly. "Jason will have to tell you that, Timbo. Please, you're better than that. What do you want to ask me?" Hood sneered, resting his elbow on the armchair's arm and leaning his head on it. There were too many choices, but he could only think about one that Jason wouldn't be able to tell him. "What do you want?" he questioned. "That's it, little Robin. It's actually very simple." Hood started excitedly. "I wasn't around when Jason died. When he was afraid and desperate for help, wanting Daddy to save him. I wasn't there when that fucking clown beat him again and again, laughing at his disgrace. It took everything for Tim not to react to Hood's words, focusing on analyzing them. But also, no one was there anyway. Jason only had a villain over him, brutally hurting him until his bones cracked, and he couldn't take it anymore. And then the sucker left, and he was still alone and in pain. No daddy, no Alfred, no older brother. Whatever, right? Hood shrugged, speaking about it as if it was a normal story and not how Tim's Robin was murdered. And, in his last moments, I could also not be there, but I remembered as if I was. Jason dragged himself, still hoping that the great, bad bat would knock down the door and save him. The tick-tock of the timer of the bomb, and his face when he saw it. And, to make a good ending, his fucking smile of tiredness and acceptance, that he would die. Which he obviously did, or I wouldn't be here. Hood chuckled darkly, tilting his head. How does that answer my question? Tim asked between clenched teeth to control himself. Neither Bruce nor Dick or Alfred ever talked about it, although Jason made many jokes. He could have read the reports of Jason's death, but it was different from hearing about it, from the pit, or whatever had access to his memories. If you had waited for me to continue, you would know, idiot. Hood scoffed, crossing his arms. The thing is, when Jason was back, nothing had changed. Not a single thing. No dead Joker, no dead villains, no fucking safe Robins. So he tried to be that change, but he grew soft again. Which was fine for me. I wasn't even what I am now. Then, some days ago, he realized something, Timmy, that he could give you what you want. I can give you what you want. And what would that be? Tim asked, trying to keep his voice steady now that he knew for sure that he had been the cause of all of this. Supposing it was something, but being sure. Love, care, acceptance, a family, but more importantly, a family that is fucking safe, who doesn't have to care about scumbags trying to kill them at every chance. Hood answered, with a spark shining in his eyes, leaning forward. I know you want that, Timbits, and you can have it. First, our family. Jason will bring each one of them and take care of them, like he is doing with you. Dick, Alfred, Steph, Cass, Babs, Duke, even Damien. Because as much as he is a little shit, he is family, and I know you don't hate him as you should. Hood raised an eyebrow, smirking. And he was right. It didn't matter that Damien took everything from him, that he humiliated, hurt, and almost killed him. Tim couldn't hate him. He just wished that the kid didn't hate him so much, to destroy all the illusions of family he had, that he could have had a real younger brother who felt for him like he did for Dick. But the rest, that was Jason's plan then. Kidnap all of their family just to make him happy for some reason he didn't get, which was impossible. They didn't love him. It was a fact. He wasn't part of their family, and there was nothing that Jason could do to buy his place between them. It wasn't fair that they suffered for a lost cause. I don't want that, Hood. I agreed to be with Jason, remember? 2 months. I don't want them here. You can't force them to stay with us, to stand me. Tim snarled and stopped the tears from filling his eyes. Now wasn't the time. They fucking love you, Timmy. It won't be as hard as you think. And besides, Jason will make sure they live well and happily, until they accept their place, like you will. Hood explained, as if he was talking to a kid that was saying something stupid. He wasn't. Hood had no idea of how the Bats felt towards him, because if he had, he would know it was anything but love. That won't work, Tim chose to say coldly. You didn't let me finish, because second, it'll be the Titans, your friends. Hood stated proudly. No, not them either. Jason couldn't do that. Tim shook his head. Yes, them, Timmy. Cassie, Bart, Garth. Each one of your little friends. Hood smirked. You can't, Tim gasped, frowning. You're not powerful enough. Jason isn't. That was the only thing that stopped him from freaking out, because it was impossible. Jason could have knocked them out in the tower, but it was different from kidnapping and keeping them like he was doing with Tim. They weren't so weak and easy to maintain captive. I'm not. At least, not yet. And not without you and our family. That's why I need you, Timmers. If you work with me, the others will follow you. and then they will have no chance. The Bat Family all together. No hero can fucking face it. Hood chuckled mockingly and got up. So it all depended on him in Hood's mind, which was stupid. His logic didn't make sense. Their family would never turn against other heroes for him. But, well, if it was what he thought, then Jason would never get what he wanted. Tim wouldn't break, neither to his kindness and care, nor to the torture he would suffer as soon as his brother got tired of him. Not the family. Bruce will stop you before, Tim said smugly, knowing he could trust Bruce with this. Bruce? Don't worry about him. He will have his hole when the time comes. Hood sneered, causing him to scowl. What did he mean? What Jason had planned for Bruce? But who needs him when I have you? Stop pretending you don't want that, little Robin. That you don't want everyone you love with you. We can change the whole game. We can have all the heroes you want with us. Don't you want to keep them safe? Hood questioned quietly, as he approached, no trace of humor in his voice. Do not live waiting for the moment you'll receive a call about one of your friends' funerals. Worrying about the moment you'll see their corpse and cry over it. You can stop it, Timmers. No villains butchering people you care about, and nothing happening to them, while you wake up traumatized and broken, missing someone you'll never see again. Hood leaned on one knee beside the bed, his tone clearly manipulative, but not stopping Tim's heart from aching. Of course he wanted that. It was all he ever did, to protect and save people, mainly those he loved. What he wasn't capable of doing for Connor. But that was impossible. Jason could kill all the villains he wished, and kidnap all the heroes he was capable of. It would never stop. It was the life they chose for them. As much as it hurt, Tim had to understand that they could only try their best and live with their failures. There was no way to fix the past, to stop villains from appearing. You can't do that, Hood. I don't want that. And I know neither does Jason. Not really. You can't burn the world and take those you want with you, Tim stated tiredly. Who said that I can't? Hood scoffed, opening his arms. I can give you everything you ever wished, little Robin. I can give you what you want back. What you have nightmares about. What consumes you from the inside. And that you said you would give everything for. And what is that? Tim asked mockingly, not expecting the answer he received, as Hood whispered close to his face. I can give you Connor back. Chapter 18. Tim. It was like time froze for a moment, as Hood's words repeated in his head. I can give you Connor back. Tim opened his mouth in shock, his eyes widened, as he stared into the green ones in front of him. He felt like his world was falling apart. A glimpse of hope in the middle of it. I can give you Connor back. Could he? If he did. No. He had to remember himself. Con was dead. Tim knew that for sure. He had tried and tried to bring him back to life in all ways possible. He searched, he tested, he did everything that could be done. It never worked. He was gone. Forever. It was impossible. He would know if it wasn't. Tim suddenly felt a wave of rage and indignation. How did Hood dare to try to use it to manipulate him? For even a single second, give him hope. How can you lie to me about it? If you want to manipulate me, just find another fucking way, Hood. Tim snarled angrily, closing his fists. He could take Jason or Hood doing anything they wanted to him, even using his friends to manipulate him. But Con? Not him. It's not a fucking lie, Hood said simply, but seriously, as he held Tim's right wrist and forcibly guided his hand towards his neck and rested his finger on his pulse. I can bring him back, Tim. Tim clenched his teeth. His pulse was steady. He analyzed Hood's face, not finding any signs that he was lying. He knew that didn't mean he truly wasn't. They were both trained by Batman. They knew how to control the pace of their heartbeat, to lie imperceptibly when they needed to. But still, he wanted to believe Hood was telling the truth, that there was a way to resurrect Connor that Tim somehow missed. He didn't even care about his failure, if that was the case. He just wanted it to be possible. If something could bring Con back, I would know, Tim grunted. Hood released his wrist and smirked, standing up. Oh yeah, I heard about your attempts. You tried to clone him 99 times, didn't you? Then you used the pit, but it didn't work. You even begged Raven to bring him back. Hood scoffed. You're a stubborn little shit, little Robin. But you failed. Every single time. It took everything he had not to shrink and back away, at how physically it hurt to hear that. For the first time since it all began, Tim felt like he was talking to the same Hood that almost beat him to death. It didn't matter how a stab of pain and betrayal cut through his heart, because of it. In a way, it was better like that. He knew how to deal with it more than to a Hood that cared for him. How, Hood? Tim asked coldly, but failing in keeping his expression unreadable and allowing a bit of disappointment to show. Oh no, little Robin. I didn't mean to hurt you. Hood apologized and stroked his hair. Tim hated how honest he seemed about it. At that moment, Tim missed Hood's fake sadness when he said he was sorry for having to rip off his wings so he could learn how dangerous being a bird was. At least that he could understand. I only meant that you did everything you could. You risked having a Connor that wouldn't be yours, just to have one back. But what I'm promising you is your Connor, the real and unique one. Hood explained arrogantly. Tim swallowed. His will was breaking. He was well aware of it. Just like he knew he had been dumb to risk everything to try to resurrect Con, when the one he would get wouldn't be him. He wouldn't be the best friend that used to take his cups of coffee out of his hand and force him to sleep by hugging him down after he passed the night awake. That smiled smugly when he beat Tim in sparring, chuckling at his blush when he carried him like a bride when they flew. The Connor that would come back could be taken by the pit madness. Or, even worse, not have any idea of who he was. That would have hurt much more. But at least it would have been something. Anything. He never considered the possibility of truly resurrecting his Con. But if Hood was being real, if he could give him that... If you're lying, Hood, I swear that you'll know why I'm known as a genius. Tim threatened harshly, holding back his tears. He wasn't bluffing. Tim would never truly hurt Jason. It didn't matter what he did, or was doing right now. Jason was his Robin, after all. He had been, even when he almost killed him. He could be an asshole sometimes, but he wasn't to blame for what was happening to him. But Hood was a different story. Tim would figure out what the hell was happening with Hood, and he would rip it off of his brother if it was fooling him. As much as I like this side of you, little Robin, and believe me, I fucking do. I literally brought Jason back from the dead, not only once, but twice, Timbo. It's not a scheme. Hood raised his hands in surrender, tilting his head when Tim scowled. He sighed and grabbed one of his guns, pointing it towards his head. Tim's reaction was immediate. No, stop, what are you doing? He snarled the question and involuntarily tried to get up, clenching his teeth at the remaining pain on his leg. Fuck. Don't get up, idiot. You're still fucking hurt. Hood growled, and used the hand that wasn't holding the gun to push him, so he was resting his back on the pillow. I would if you didn't just try to shoot Jason's head. Why did you do that? Tim questioned angrily, his heartbeat racing as he ignored the pain. He almost saw Jason die. How did he expect him to react? For a moment, he even forgot what they were discussing. Then it hit him like a truck when Hood talked. I would prove to you that I can bring Jason back. Hood shrugged, and put his gun in its holster, rolling his eyes and crossing his arms. But since you're against it, you'll have to believe my word. All I need is his body, a clone, and you'll have your best friend back. Tim looked down, breathing deeply. He tried to stop his emotions from controlling him. He had to be rational right now. If Jason hadn't died from a shot in the head, it could only have been Hood who had saved him, and the pit was what could resurrect people and heal wounds like that, which meant that it was really likely that Hood could do what he was saying. That he could resurrect Con. His Con. When the realization settled in his mind, Tim resisted the impulse to immediately accept Hood's offer. He had to contain that part of him that would give anything Hood wished just to have Connor back. He wanted to act over that part of him. He really wanted to. Some time ago, he would have without any hesitation. And that was why it was the hardest decision he ever took to not do it. Tim closed his eyes for a moment, a tear streaming down his left cheek. I need time to think, Tim asked numbly, not looking at Hood to allow him to see how conflicted he was. but he still could hear the smug smile on his face. He knew what he was doing to him. Of course it was useless to even try to hide it. Tim smiled bitterly inside his mind. "No worries. You have the 2 months Jason promised you, little Robin," Hood said, surprisingly soft, but still proudly, before winking at him. "I'll get lunch. Try not to mess around while I'm not back." Hood opened the door and left the room, and Tim immediately fell apart. He put his hands on his face, resting it on them as he sobbed. He could have Con again, this time for real. And he didn't refuse it, but he didn't accept it either. Because he couldn't be selfish. Not again. There were too many things at stake. The villains' lives, his family, his friends, maybe even the whole superhero world if Jason actually managed to make his plan happen. Which would be tough, but not impossible. Maybe Tim could manipulate Hood or Jason, have them bring Con back, and then together, they could stop them. But what if because Hood resurrected him, he could kill Connor off? Or worse, what if he had power over him? Tim wouldn't be able to do anything against him, if that was the case, and his actions could cause so many people suffering. They would hate him. The villains already did, but the rest, he would lose what he still had of care and friendship from any hero. From Cassie, Bart, Garth. But the worst part? For Con, it would be worth it. All the hatred, disgust, contempt. He could take it all if Con was by his side again. Even if his best friend despised him for what he did to have him back. At least he would be alive. Tim would have become a traitor. But he would feel those arms around him once more. See that big smile. Hear Con's laugh again. What was wrong in wanting him back so badly? Oh, yeah. The fact that he would be failing Bruce and everyone he loved and cared for once more. The ones that were alive. Tim's breath hitched as he tried to calm himself down. Crying was useless. He learned that since he was a child, begging for his parents to not leave him. He was responsible for all his choices. Whoever from his family was inside the bunker, probably also kidnapped like him, counted on him. His family, his friends, the other heroes. He couldn't disappoint them. They didn't deserve to suffer because of his mistakes. Tim always knew that his function was one of a tool. He had value as long as he was useful, as long as he made the right choices and gave results. That wasn't what was happening there. He had a plan, and he would stick to it. Get information about Hood, manipulate and help Jason to convince him to give up. Do anything to keep others safe from Jason, and Hood now. It didn't matter the cost for him. It didn't matter how much it hurt, how it seemed like his heart was being crushed. He had to put Con's resurrection aside. 2 months. 2 months, and it would be over. And when he was done, Tim would find a way to make Hood still bring Con. He would offer him something that didn't involve so many people's lives. Tim would give him anything he could want from him, for him, to give his best friend back. Because he wouldn't give up on Con. That wasn't what he was doing. He didn't think he was even capable of it. But why did he still feel so guilty? Why did he feel like he was betraying Con? Hood. Hood rested his back on the door of the little Robin's room, hearing him sob. Okay, maybe he had been too mean. No, he certainly had been meaner than he should have. Fuck. Jason should have had this conversation. Not that he was better at being less of an asshole, but at least he would know when to stop. Hood just couldn't stop after he saw Timmy so close to accepting his plan, and standing by his side. Where he should be. Where he belonged. And damn, his little bird just looked good falling apart. Hood couldn't be blamed for enjoying it. It didn't mean he wanted it, though. He only wished his birds would see it. Why was it so hard to make them see Jason was the best option for them? They didn't understand. That was why he had to go so far. He knew that using Connor was the right way to get the little Robin's heart. He was so conflicted that he wouldn't last 2 months without making the right choice. But maybe, just maybe, it was too soon. Timmers could be a genius, but there was a list of things that he was the worst at when it came to his self-care. The poor bird didn't even value his own life. He thought that no one cared or loved him. It would be funny if it wasn't tragic how he got to think like that. Fucking stupid bat family. It was good that he would soon be in charge of it. But first, he had to do the job right. Or better, Jason had. To truly convince his little Robin and his big bird, he had to show them why they should follow him. They had to feel like they were more loved and cared for than Batman or anyone else ever made them feel. He would be their protector, their caretaker, the one they could trust when they were vulnerable, until they trusted him enough to follow his plans. The little bird would take patience, time, and love. His big bird would need a firm hand, but Dickie was a sucker for physical care. He would do anything to be close to their little brother, even for a few minutes. And Jason's special attention would make him see the truth. After all, a good older brother should always put their younger siblings first. What was better for the family, it was better for them. His birds would break, eventually, and then he would take the rest of his birds to where they belonged to. They would be happy with their little friends with them, which, ironically, were mostly superhumans. They wouldn't be easy to contain, but that was what Batman's contingency plans were for. And in the end, he could always use his own powers. They would make it easy, just not as pleasant as he wanted. Hood couldn't help. He was still a sadistic bastard. He still loved the sound of bones breaking, and the screams of fear and pain. Sometimes, even from the ones who were his. Maybe he should get his own superhuman. A Kryptonian would be cool. His family seemed to have a strange obsession over them, and Jason would like one. Hood smirked as he felt his head start to spin suddenly, slowly sitting on the ground. It was Jason's turn. If you enjoyed this, the link to the original fic is in the description below. Please follow the link and give the author kudos and comments. If you enjoyed this reading, you can subscribe, or go down to the comments below and give suggestions on other fics I should do. I'll talk to the author and see if they're cool with it. Thank you for listening. This is such a funny set of words. He would crush their eyeballs and slaughter their genitals. That's not... There's so many other words that you could use other than slaughter there. I don't think you can kill a penis. Not his name, but it seemed... Nah. I forgot that this part of the fic has daddy as, like, a regular word that's a red. Jesus Christ. I forgot that Hood had a daddy kink. Good God. There are now clips of me on the internet saying daddy and good boy. Baby girl, what the fuck? That is a baby girl, that is a child. That is an actual child. My man, you share a bank account with Roy Harper. Okay, don't start that. They're literally married. Pleasing, even. Why is the pit freaky? The sentence is, but he liked his big bird's lawyers? Doesn't make any sense. Jason woke up one day and went, maybe I should kidnap my brother. And then decided to not, backtrack on that at all. Not, think about how his actions would affect the people that he cared about. He decided that he was correct in what he was doing. And didn't get any second opinion. He doesn't have a support system of any kind. This is on Jason. As a mentally ill person myself, I will happily shit on Jason Todd. Hee hee hee. Little gay man. Ha ha ha.